Hello Gator Nation. We're fortunate to have with us today Sean Belgrade. He is the Senior Vice President of Sales and Marketing for the Daytona International Speedway. Thanks for being here, Sean.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
So let's start a little bit with your career path. Can you take us through your time when you left Gainesville and then to your current position and talk a little bit about your current role with the Daytona International Speedway?
Sure. Graduated in '92 here from the college. Prior to graduation, I had to do an internship.
Okay.
Did an internship with the Florida Citrus Sports Association down in Orlando. They promoted the New Year's Day Bowl game there. Did that for 3 months, worked for free. Got my credits, graduated. They created a job for me there as an event coordinator. They did a number of different events in the market, from basketball tournaments, baseball tournaments. So I did kind of a jack of all trades on the event marketing side. I was there for about 3 years, went to SeaWorld and the Anheuser-Busch theme parks on the promotion side, so learned a bit more on the media, promotions, event marketing, sponsorship side. I was there for 3 years, and then was lucky enough to get hired by International Speedway Corporation over in Daytona Beach. It's a publicly traded company. At the time, they owned 3 racetracks around the country, including the Daytona International Speedway. Today, they own 12 racetracks, including the Speedway. Started on the promotion side there. My job was to help drive admissions to a new attraction they had built there called Daytona USA. But they also utilized me to help drive admissions to the racetracks. Eventually went on that to lead our licensing for International Speedway Corporation. Then led all of our corporate sponsorship. Had a stint at the Speedway from 2001 to 2002 as the VP of Sales and Marketing. At the time, came back over mid-2000 and started a consumer marketing department for ISC. So we were somewhat of an agency on the marketing side. Research, internet, digital marketing, launched a call center, did that and different things for about 7 or 8 years. And then was fortunate enough to move back over to Daytona International Speedway, where I led the sales and marketing, and I do that today. I'm over all the revenue portions of the Speedway. So all the sales and marketing, traditional advertising, marketing, PR, communications, and then really on all of our corporate sponsorship.
So I'm guessing you don't have a typical day.
No.
Could you share a little bit about what you spend a majority of your time or efforts on?
Well, I actually have a great team, and so I've got 5 direct reports and a staff of about 70 people. So I try to create direction and really, from a strategy standpoint, lead direction where we want to go. And really try to let the teams then execute upon those strategies for us. I will dip down and if I need to help sell, if I need to help plan the marketing and advertising, but I've spent a lot more time lately on new content, new events, and really chasing new events ever since we redid the stadium.
So speaking of that, there was a recent renovation that just happened there a couple years back called Daytona Rising. Can you share a little bit about some of the major factors that went into making that decision or pulling the trigger to pursue that major renovation?
Sure. We started in 2013, and it was a property that was an old property. It was certainly home to Daytona 500, one of the most recognizable sports brands in the world, but the experience in the stands just wasn't living up to the prominence of the race itself. It was a facility we expanded over 50 years, added more seats, but it was tough to get around the property. Our best customers were climbing up a lot of stairs. We're starting to lose customers because of that. So we took a step back and said, wait a minute, we have an iconic brand here, and we need to make sure we're delivering the experience to do that. And so really completely redid the property. We now have a stadium, and we're excited.
What elements specifically really stand out to you that you're excited about as working sort of in that sales and marketing space?
Just space, to be honest with you. It's a big property. It's easy to get around the property. We added 40 escalators, so from an ease of vertical transportation to move around the property, that was real important. Have some great space for corporate activation. So a lot of our corporate sponsors are able to activate and bring, able to share their brands and their messages to our customers. Also a great way for us to communicate. We have Wi-Fi that goes all through the concourses, trying to keep people connected in this new age.
So the renovation was completed in 2016.
Yes.
So you've had several races since. Can you talk a little bit about some of the feedback you've gotten from fans with the updated facility?
I think the feedback for the most part has been very good. It was interesting at first as we were going through the process. People said, well, you're just going to give me a new seat, right? And we're like, well, no, we're going to change your entire experience. Sure. But once people came, they're like, wow, this is incredible. The sight lines are wonderful. To have your own individual seat, the ease of moving through the property. So those were for mostly for our returning guests. But as we get new people who have come to the property, the way of staying engaged and connected to the world are certainly been very beneficial.
Okay, so obviously you undertook this renovation really trying to plan for the next several years and sort of that changing, evolving, sporting event fan that we're seeing with the influx of technology and again with the changing needs and desires of consumers. Could you project out a little bit? What do you think are going to be some of those major trends or factors that affect that live sporting event over the next 25 years?
Well, as television continues to get better and better, it's competitive to the facilities on getting people to the live, but the TV partners are also our partners too. Mm-hmm. Sure. And so how do you bring that experience from a home into more of the live event itself? And so how do you keep them engaged? How do you keep them attentive? How do you keep them connected to that mobile device? Mm-hmm. Okay, how do you provide experiences that are maybe different? Sure. Okay, that are in the stadium that you can get at home? So sure. Are you able to have different channel access on your phone to maybe to the in-car cameras for some of the drivers and things like that?
Sure. So thinking specifically about motorsport fans, I'm sure you've been in this business now for 20 plus years, specifically with the motorsport fans. There's certain sort of generalizations that we think of when we think of the motorsport fan. What does the motorsport fan of the future look like?
I think it's traditional America. Okay, I think it's somebody who works hard and wants to take their family out for some entertainment. Mm-hmm. Okay, I think it's very culturally diverse. We're starting to get a lot more competitors that are coming from different backgrounds, different parts of the world. So I think it'll be a very diverse crowd. I think it'll continue to be an avid crowd, though. They have passion around sure. the competitors or the manufacturers that they have allegiances to. Mm-hmm. So I don't really see that changing, okay. But I think it takes on a little bit more of your Americana.
Okay. So I always like to wrap up the conversations by allowing you to give a little advice to our current students or maybe our alums or maybe other young professionals out there looking to break into the industry. So do you have sort of go-to advice that you provide to young people that really want to maybe break in the industry or specifically want to get into that sales and marketing space?
I do. It's when I get a chance to talk to most college students, one of the first questions I like to ask them is, how many of you are going to be in sales? Okay, and usually if you got 50 people in the room, you may get 3 or 4 hands that raise up. And I said, well, the rest of the 46, I've got a rude awakening for you. You're all in sales. You're selling yourself at all times. And so what I'd say is take advantage of every conversation you have with somebody. Okay. Build your network. Okay. Stay in touch with those people. Okay, because you may do an internship somewhere and there may not be an opportunity. Mm-hmm. Okay, but that's now a resource for you to connect you, and they may see something down the road that says, hey, John, who came over here, who worked for me, or who I had a connection with, who sent me a letter afterwards. Sure. Okay, he applied for this job, but suddenly one opens up somewhere else, and I know somebody who I can connect that person with. So we may not be able, as a resource, to get them the job, but we can give them the opportunity to have the ability to sell themselves.
I love that. So I have one more question for you. You talked about this idea of networking and building relationships. We talk about that a lot, but that's a very scary concept. It's a very abstract concept for a lot of students. And so do you have any sort of nuts and bolts advice about how to get that student down that road to beginning to build those relationships and beginning to build that network? What's sort of that first step they can take?
Well, I'm sure you guys bring in speakers all the time. Okay, so I think the ability to connect with the speakers, to stay afterwards, to share a few notes with them, okay. To have a conversation, to ask for a card, okay. And then to communicate back. Okay, and sometimes the ones that were meaningful with me, I get handwritten cards sometimes from students that you speak to. Okay, and I keep them and I put them in a rubber band. I keep them in the top drawer of my desk. And so really taking advantage of all the relationship. Your parents have relationships with different people. Use that to your advantage. Build your database there. Okay, and then I think it's also just staying in touch, and also it's being relevant to have a meaningful conversation with somebody. Sure. So if you have somebody coming in, make sure you know a little bit about their industry. Make sure you know a little bit about them, so it's a little easier to create that connection.
Sure. Well, I really appreciate it. I think that you've given us some insights definitely into motorsports, specifically Daytona International Speedway, and also some great advice for our students and young alums. I really appreciate you taking the time, Sean.
Thanks for having me.
And go Gators.
Go Gators.